So this is going to be my second video in my Adventures in Therapy series. And for a second time, I'll reiterate that I'm not the one in therapy. Ha ha ha. But I'm going to give this series individual titles to the videos, unlike the Adventures in Aberrant Psychology series. And also, unlike that series, I can't say anything about any clientele I've had any contact with or any organizations I've worked for. So, what to talk about? You know, I've been thinking about this for a while. My last series, I made a video, you know, every couple weeks with some very good, insightful, fun stories, but I find myself really thinking about, well, if you can't talk about anyone or any place, you know, what can you talk about? And that's a weird position that you get in as a therapist, is that you have no outlet except for maybe other therapists and coworkers. But if your problem was, you know, with your coworkers, you know, if you wanted to vent to someone else about that, then you've got nothing. Nothing. Maybe some colleagues that you can trust, you know, from the past, but really it's very limiting in the realm of being able to vent. But I have thought of a couple things that I can share. Though they're kind of vague, but in keeping with the traditions of that last series, I'm going to talk about the ethical conflicts I've had in my experience doing this. And in this video, I'm going to bring up two of them. Now, the first one, it's not specific to any organization, but it is specific to a regulatory organization from the state government. Here in Colorado, there are two organizations that oversee just about all mental health fields. That would be OBH, the Office of Behavioral Health, and DORA. And basically the difference is, if you had a problem with a person, you complain to DORA. If you have a problem with an organization, you complain to OBH. So, OBH, the Office of Behavioral Health, this is the ethical problem I have. They have constructed a system whereby on intake and on discharge for any program that has to do with any mental health issue, but especially substance abuse, there are these things called DACODS, and it's a survey. And what this survey does is it gives them statistics that they can use to make studies, so that they have the facts, so that when policies get made about substance abuse, they can, you know, have hard facts from surveys from all the people that have gotten treatment. So if it's an approved treatment facility, they have to do DACODS. And DACODS stands for Drug Alcohol Coordinated Data System. But basically it's just a survey, okay? It's things like how many kids do you have, how long have you been smoking cigarettes, you know, what's your primary drug of choice is a big one, where do you get your drugs, yada yada yada, marital status, education level. So there's like 70 questions on the intake, and there's like 50 questions on the discharge survey. Now, something that I have come across in this is that the OBH system is broken, and that it is leading organizations to basically create data that is no longer valid for study use because it has been manipulated. And two prime examples I can give you. And these aren't specific from events. This is just what would happen. Let's say you had someone in a treatment facility where they were not bound to stay there by any rule, that they could just leave at will. What happens if they get really, really pissed off and leave without taking the discharge survey, the discharge DACODS? What happens then? Well, their therapist then creates a discharge DACODS survey to the best of their ability. And some of those questions you really don't know. Like, there is one question that is basically in the last 30 days or in the last treatment episode that you were in, did you use your drug of choice? Or did you use any drug? So if someone left, gone, one of the reasons they might leave is, well, they know that they're about to get a hot drug test and that they're going to get kicked out anyway, so they're just, beating the program to the punch. So you really don't know the answer to that question. They left. You can't test them. You have no idea. So since they're not sitting there in front of you because they're gone, any answers that someone puts down is basically fudging because of circumstances. And without fudging and filling in the blanks, organizations don't get paid because they can't bill until that DACODS is in the system. So, yeah, there's a lot of incentive for those discharge DACODS to get done no matter what. There's no option to say, well, they left and they didn't wait around to do a discharge. There's no way to hold them. There's no box to check that says, I couldn't do the discharge DACOD. There is only to the best of your ability. And the bad part of that is you're making up a lot of it, and those statistics that get built off of these surveys are used to enact policies and legislation that affect treatment later on. Okay? You'd want that information to be accurate as possible, and not fudged. So the second ethical reason that I've had a problem in this career field is there are programmed errors in the DACODS system where it will reject things that are logical to you, but don't gel with the system. And my greatest example that pisses me off is, hypothetically, someone comes into a treatment facility and they say that their drug of choice is alcohol, but sometimes they use marijuana and methamphetamines. And then they go through 2 weeks of treatment. And then at the end of that, they get discharged. And in that discharge survey, they say, well, you know what, I've had a while to think about it, and now my drug of choice, my primary, the one that's giving me the most problems, and I think it's actually meth. And that's followed by pot, and that's followed by alcohol as my tertiary. So if you actually put in that into the discharge DACODS and you electronically try to submit it, if it doesn't match the intake DACODS perfectly, if the primary drug of choice isn't the same and the secondary and the tertiary, then it will reject it. And it won't accept it until you change it to where both match. And I'm sorry, but in my opinion, that is unethical to change their answers, because their answers are their own. This is their survey. But the system as it stands right now, in late August of 2015, the OBH system is broken in the state of Colorado, and there are so many things that will get kicked back for having correct, true, right answers, that it's created problems where therapists probably in every organization are fudging answers just to get them accepted by a computer system, rather than having the computer system accept whatever the client says. So I'm not happy with that. I'm still kind of thinking about what I might be able to do about that as far as a complaint to OBH. But I'm sure that they have been working on the situation for a while. But so that's one ethical dilemma I've had. The next ethical dilemma, that'll be the last thing I share with you in this video, is that, and I'm not the only one who's experienced this. I know my girlfriend has as well in another public service field. It's basically there's a rift that I'm sensing in treatment of mental health, treatment of substance abuse, doing public service for homeless people, social work, all these things. There is a very big rift between those who come from hard sciences and those who have flooded these fields, coming from a background of fluff and woo. And it bears out in problems like you have a facility that has shifts, and certain shifts will hold tight to certain boundaries and rules for the clients, and other shifts let them break those rules all the time. And it's because they have a difference of opinion as to what is important. Some people think that it's more important to become the friend of the client and create a bond that way so that they trust you, rather than hold to boundaries like rules of the building, smoking rules, using in the program, violence in the program, all these things that, people from hard science backgrounds, they might say, well, they broke the rule, they got to, pay the consequence, maybe get discharged from the program. Whereas the others will look the other way and have the rationale that if they were to enforce those rules and discharge everyone who broke rules, who had mental issues and had substance abuse problems, these people who are very likely to break rules all the time, if they discharge everyone for breaking rules, they wouldn't be giving out any treatment. They'd just be discharging people. And I get that opinion, but the boundaries and rules people versus the treat, no matter what people. There's a big knocking of heads in just about every office. And it doesn't matter what the social service that is being given out is. If you come from a background of skepticism and hard science, you will knock heads with anyone who came from a field where basically all you have to do to get that degree is sit in a chair and voila, a couple years later you get your degree after watching a bunch of fluff films and learning from watered down textbooks. There are whole social work programs that I think are just horrible. I mean, people would come out of those programs dumber than they were when they graduated high school. That's how bad they are, in my opinion. But you get people with hard science backgrounds, like a degree in education, educator, degree in psychology, maybe biology, and doctors who specialize as psychiatrists. All of those versus social work, counseling. There's all sorts of sociology, philosophy. All of these are considered human sciences, behavioral sciences, where you could all have the same job, because there's not one set curriculum for these jobs. It's like, oh, well, you just have to have a degree in the requirements. They'll say you just have to have a degree from one of these fields, one of these behavioral related fields or social fields. And problem is, there's a big difference between the hard science people and the fluffy, hugging, pampered types. My girlfriend, especially right now, she's going through a program where she's screamed at a textbook about 30 times now for finding things that are just wrong or watered down to the point of not teaching anyone anything, and she has had problems with her coworkers because they are very sure of themselves, but they are very dead wrong in some very important ways. And it creates tension in workplaces, office politics. Somebody will get painted as asshole for standing up for boundaries. And largely, I found it a survival skill to just try to fly under the radar and go with what the people with tenure are wanting. But if I were to advance my career and be in charge of a facility, I think that I would run things a bit differently than someone who had a more fluff background in their education. So that's it for this episode. I'm going to have to think long and hard about something that I can say about these adventures without talking about anything that would break confidentiality. So, till next time, which might be a while.